you for joining us today for the Dig Deeper webinar, Shaping New Development Paths in Structural Change in Saxony, Germany. This event is held as a hybrid event, and I would like to welcome attendees who joined me here at the Mobile Innovation Center in Gippsland. My name is Thomas Baumgartl. I'm Director of the Future Regions Research Center at Federation University, and I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands and waters we are gathering on, the Gunai people, and pay my respect to the elders past and present, and extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and First Nations people. Before we move on, a couple of housekeeping things for the people here in the room physically attending. Please be aware that microphones are live all the time throughout the event. We are going to take photos. If you have concerns with it, please let me know after the event. And please turn off your mobile phones or put them on silent. For our event today, I would like to welcome our speakers and panel members. That is Dr. Friedrich Dornbusch and Dr. Benjamin Klement, both from the Fraunhofer Institute for Systems and Innovation Research in Leipzig, Germany. And also Chris Buckingham, who sits to the left to me, previous CEO of the La Trobe Valley Authority here in Gippsland. A brief CV of speakers. Dr. Friedrich Dornbusch studied economic geography and economics at the University of Hanover. He did his PhD at the University of Marburg at the Department of Geography. Since May 2021, he is head of Regional Transformation and Innovation Policy Department at Fraunhofer ISI. He's also leading the Department of Innovation Policy and Transfer Design. Klement holds a PhD in geography, also from the University of Marburg. He works with Fraunhofer since 2018 and is head of the Innovative Regions Group at Fraunhofer ISI since 2023. He leads projects, particularly in the data-driven analysis of regional innovation systems in transformation processes. His research is used in the design of policies for structural change processes, the identification of emerging technology fields, location analysis, and the evaluation of policy measures which provide funding for innovation. Before I hand over to the speakers, I would like to mention to those attending virtually, if you have any questions, please send them to the chat. For those here in the room, we can either send your questions as a note to us or ask physically in the Q&A. The presentation, we will have about half an hour presentation by the Fraunhofer people, followed by a discussion Q&A. And we'll try to finish on time at 6, 5, 3 o'clock. Yeah, that's probably about it. I'll hand over to Friedrich and Benjamin.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas, and thanks everybody for joining, and especially thank you for allowing us and giving us the opportunity to present on, basically one of our, I would say, most important projects we do have in our the department right now, and kind of the experiences that we've made while conducting this project. It's still ongoing, and to present on these, let's say, experiences, lessons we've learned from this project, which has, I would say, a new and special focus. And I mean, you mentioned in the introduction that we do have kind of a strong focus on applying AI in socioeconomic research, especially in how to use it in decision-making, in supporting the regional transformation in this area here in Germany, in Saxony. And this is basically the core we're working on in this project. And I think we're going to dig deeper in there now. What you see here in the front page is a picture taken by Benjamin And I think what we want to highlight here is what it basically shows is, on the one hand, a nice lake. On the other hand, it shows more or less the result of the first phase of transformation that Eastern Germany has been undergoing. And this kind of shows that the region we are living in and we are working in is quite experienced and has some identity in coal itself. And also it's the biographies of the people living here are shaped by ongoing transformation processes. And this is important to know if you deal with these questions and if you deal with these regions. And it's a nice picture, I think, but also. What we're going to do now is first, it might be helpful for people from abroad to learn a bit. Of course, we're going to try to keep it short, but to get a bit of a background on structural change. And as I said, we would call it the second transformation in phasing out of coal in Eastern Germany, and especially on the case of Saxony, how it is done in Eastern Germany, and a little bit of the funding and political background, I think I'm going to provide in the first step. Then I'm going to give a brief introduction into Genesis and the goals of the project itself. And Benjamin is going to deep dive in the heart of the project and going to show a status quo and give first insights on how he's going to explain it later, what we call the statistical twin and how this works and what's the status there right now. And then we're going to end with a few lessons learned we've made so far. Yeah, as I said, a little bit on the background on coal transition in Germany. In the second phase of coal transition, it more or less started with the Paris Agreement. I think most of the people listening here and watching our presentation will be familiar with that one. And this led to the decision by the German government to reduce CO2 emissions, I think, if I'm right, by 85% till 2050 is here. I think there's already a new number in the room, which is saying 2045. Nevertheless, net zero in 2050 at least. And one of the core decisions to reach this goal was to drop out of coal, completely drop out of coal now. And this put the coal exploiting and coal producing regions under kind of some pressure. I'm going to go into that later. What has been done is, in order to deal with this process and to prepare it and to kind of get an idea and to get a plan on how to support the regions that are going to lose the coal production and coal exploitation. A Commission for Growth, Structural Change and Employment has been funded, which was kind of set up by a couple of I think it's 78, right? 78 people. 28 people from different sectors of society, economy, science, not NGOs, labor unions, regions. And what they in the end recommended is that Germany should have a plan to drop out of coal till 2038. And also, which is important, that the regions that are affected by the phasing out should be compensated for the structural transformation and change that will have to be done. This was put into a law, which is called the Structural Strengthening Law, and was enacted in 2020. It should be mentioned here that the population-wise largest state in Germany, North Rhine-Westphalia, even decided to phase out of coal until 2030. So quite a lot of time earlier than the other regions. This kind of also puts the other regions under pressure. You can say that, I think. And this goes along with the decision which has already been done in 2011, that Germany had decided to exit out of the nuclear energy too, which has kind of some implications for the energy prices in Germany, together with dropping out of coal. Nevertheless, if you look just on the left side of the slide, You could say that this was it was a bureaucratic process, kind of. However, it was quite successful because in the end, Germany at the moment has if you look at the goal to get out of to reduce the carbon emissions, we reduced carbon emissions by around about 50% for electricity generation, and renewables make up more than 60% of the energy mix, which you could say is quite successful, I'd say, and not many people would have expected that in 2016. Nevertheless, already said, this went along with, let's say, society-wise tensions. Of course, these tensions does not only come from going out of coal, but they kind of accumulate, especially in the regions where coal mining is an important factor, has been an important factor, and this I think is even more important. I'm already trying to pinpoint that in the title slide. These regions have a strong identity and a strong identification with coal and with energy, being energy regions, which already you can see that on the right side, the picture. The football club in Cottbus is called Energie Cottbus. This already shows how strong the identification with energy and coal is in these regions. And you see that on the pictures, you see that there has been a huge discussion and dispute on this issue, on if and how we should go phase out of coal. I think I'll leave it to that. Here, a bit more to the facts and the numbers. This structural strengths law came along with the promise, and I think this is, I think worldwide, I don't know, but for Germany, it's the first time ever that regions have been promised to be supported and to be funded for a structural process that has not even started at that time. And they were promised to get 40 billion euros until 2038, split among the three core regions, core producing regions you see on this map. The biggest amount went to North Rhine-Westphalia. It depends on how many people living there and a couple of other indicators. But nevertheless, if you look at the right side in Eastern Germany, I don't know if you see the cursor here. These two coal mining regions, Saxony has a share in two of them, in the Alsatian mining region and the Central German mining region, and altogether to Saxony is going to be 14 billion going into Saxony, and they will have to be allocated. I'd say, strategically and sustainable. And the core goal of this funding is to, and in the end, create employment, diversify the economic structure, and help the regions to build up new structures that they, in some cases, already had lost before, are losing right now. And this going along and meeting, of course, the SDG goals. Going not too deep, but a little bit deeper in the allocation mechanism. This might be helpful really from a bird's perspective, but this might be helpful to understand the German way is from these 14 billion, 26 billion are allocated directly by federal state. Nevertheless, 14 billion, not those only going to Saxony, it's just saying it because it's just the same number, but in general, 14 billion of the 40 can be decided over by the states themselves. You can imagine that this already is kind of puts some challenges on the way how decision making is done if you want to allocate this money properly. This takes some transaction costs for sure. The question is, what does this mean for Saxony? We are in Saxony, our project deals with Saxony. And as I said, I mean, in the end, it's the question, how do we allocate the money properly, and how do we allocate the money along with core competencies and endogenous potential we do have in this region we want to build upon and and we want to fund efficiently and impactful. And this is what we see in Saxony right now. Like the actual status quo is 245 projects are funded or are in a process where funding is more or less secure, it's going to be done. These 245 projects, I'd say, cover a broad spectrum of topics, like infrastructure, like streets, like public. Okay, thank you. They go into urban development. They go into digitalization of the industry. They go into touristic infrastructure. In the end, the core idea is to make the regions in general more livable and to be able to attract people from outside. I think that's the core idea here. Nevertheless, you can say that the allocation mechanism was really rather heterogeneous, I'd say. Nevertheless, what you do also have is from the federal level coming, and this is really, from our point of view, quite impressive. What has been decided there 2 years ago, I think. We have 2 large research centers that are in a ramp up phase right now that are going to get over 1 billion euros and should be employing in 2038 at least over 1,000 employees, researchers, and technical staff. One is the Center for the Transformation of Chemistry, which totally makes sense in a region where there's lots of chemistry and energy-depending industry around. And the other one is the German Center for Astrophysics in the Alsatian region, which might appear on the first sight a bit more footloose. But the hope is that this is going to have quite some impact in the sense of attracting people dealing with AI and having strong connections to Dresden. I think that's basically it, and the topics covered are mentioned here on slide 2. In general, I would say it's everything in it that you usually find different regions all over the world. Yeah. Coming to Genesis, just have a look at the time. Okay. Being quick so that you have time left to present a statistical twin. Let's get this one. The goal of the Genesis project. As I've said, there's quite some challenges to decide what are the true and homogeneous potentials we do find in the regions where the money is allocated in, and to identify these potentials and to build an empirical basis for political but also economic decision making. The idea of the project is to create we call it digital image of Saxony's transformation regions. Benjamin is going to show the concept behind this digital image in two slides later. And yeah, I mean, I think the rest is more or less clear from what I've been saying. The idea is really to build a foundation for discussion processes and help people in the region and in policy to build a basis on which they can objectively, as objective as possible, discuss new projects, discuss the allocation mechanism for new projects, along with potential development paths for the region where everyone can agree on that this will make sense for the region to orchestrate around these future pathways. Yeah, and as we see it, like on the one hand, it's this decision making. On the other hand, it's really being also able to help communicate the decisions that have been made and to make them evidence based and graspable, also from society and also like outside of the regions and outside of Germany. And in the end, we kind of want to build the basis for monitoring of if the measures done have been impactful. And that's the core idea of the project. I hope that's made it as clear as possible. Most important slide, I'm always saying this is the team. I think This is the team behind it. On the left side, we see the data scientists, I'd call them, to sum it up, which are building the statistical twin. And this team is led by Benjamin, and on the right-hand side, led by my colleague Anne-Kathrin Diethaler. It's a team which deals more with the question of how we can translate the empirical findings we get out of this statistical twin into political decision making, and also into communicating into public. This is the two modules we do in the project. I'll leave it with that and hand over to you, Benjamin.
Thank you. This is kind of the basic model and concept behind the project. In general, Genesis stands for the design of development path for the structural change in Saxony, and this was the main idea behind that, to find a way to find out what are the endogenous potentials of Saxony, what are the regions consisting of, innovation and economic wise, and what can be made out from this. So what are the future development path where Saxony should develop into? So the main concept that we used is something we developed in the recent years. This is kind of, you see in the middle, there is the model of an innovation system, which consists of actors, interactions, and institutions. And this is providing the basis for a digital image or digital twin. This is a word that is used so often that we are still not sure how to call it in the end, but let's leave it at digital twin maybe. Of course, it's not a factory, it's a region. And this model is consisting of, we want to say, all the actors, so all the organizations, their knowledge and their activities they do that can be useful for analyzing structural change, how they interact with each other, how are their relations, and what are the institutions guiding their interactions and their actions, basically. So, which is very important in structural change, as you may notice, there's a lot going on institution-wise, because people are locked into the old ways of doing economic development, and it's very hard in structural change to move to another development path. So what we are trying to do is collect data on all of these activities on the left-hand side. It contains of structured and unstructured data, and to put it into this model of the region. And this is kind of from the data that we try to input into this model. We have on a very early point noticed that we need the new novel developments in AI to use it make full use out of it. Because you can imagine that all these different data sets, they have very different qualities and different quality, and how they call actors, for example. And there we use some methods on record linkage, how to harmonize all the data, that in the end, one actor that has different names is in the end the same actor, for example, in different data sets. So of course, you can say in the company data, it's completely different than when it's mentioned in some projects, or if it's mentioned on the news, or if the company offers jobs, for example. So this is where we bring in record linkage methods, and in the process of processing the data and finding out what is a relevant knowledge base, we use NLP, natural language processing, especially in the field of topic modeling, to deal with the fact that to find out of the text that we have on their activities, what are they doing and what are they knowing, and what could be the relationships to future development paths coming out from these endogenous strengths. And the last part here, then we use the databases. We put them into one big graph database. And from this graph database that we have called Axon, we develop, we call them 4 analysis modules. It's a kind of a search engine for the region, a monitoring module that looks at the dynamics and the status quo of how the region has developed on a municipal level. And then there will be also an analysis module for scouting for new development path. Based on ideas of smart specialization, for example, or the relatedness between technologies, we look at what is the region doing right now and what are other regions doing similar but provide other ways to go into new development path. And last module is the matching module, where we want to provide actors in the region a simple interactive way to find other organizations that do similar or complementary activities to them, so they can find better potential cooperation partners. So what we want to do with this concept is, of course, provide new data and information for decision makers, provide them with overview on the one hand side, and also transparency of what happens. In the long run, we also want to show, give some access to the population, the general population that's interested in this process, to provide some transparency of this considerable funding. Of course, we think that our concept is also has potential uses in showing potentials and ideas to show these weak signals that the region is doing and what can be developed from it. Also, we learned that it's legitimization and communication of the structural change is a very big problem and a challenge for policy, because you have to move to a completely different, unknown way of doing economic development, and that has to be communicated very well. And I think our in the end webpage will be a way to do it. And in the last proposition is for policy to provide a way to monitor the impact of their own funding. And the idea in the end is to provide, basically it's a website, of course, for the policymakers, where they have these 4 modules at hand. They have this search engine to find activities across databases. So they can say, well, I want to fund something related to hydrogen. Who are the actors already being active in hydrogen? The organization that is applying for funding, do they have any experience there, for example? Or let's say there is this new chemistry research center. What are actually the potential partners for this research center to create new solutions in the bioeconomy, for example? Then we have the scouting part, where we try to, topic model all the activities we can find, and then provide a way to find new development path. And then the matching, we have already experience in the matching platform for Fraunhofer itself. So we want to apply this knowledge to the region. And then this is a map of the central German and the Lusatian mining district, and how the municipalities are faring in kinds of the quality of life and the funding landscape. And we want to monitor this development until as far as it goes, right? So this will be put on one page, and I would say I will show you the slides, and maybe later, if you have distinct questions related to, let's say, the back end, I can show you also on the website our view, how it looks like, and how the prototype of this website looks at the moment. So let's say, for example, the search engine. here you see on the left-hand side how it looks on the left-hand side how it looks in the back end. This is like a graph database where you write some code, and for example, you search something with a query, you have to write in code, and on the front end it comes out on this prototype of the search tool. Of course, policymakers will never be able to write just some lines of code. We know we have to translate writing these lines of code into how a search engine is used. And the first step is that it's kind of a full text search and with filters. But we are already working on a chatbot where you really can, well, you can provide questions. Let me tell you, training the data on already existing questions of policymakers is very interesting at the moment. So we developed this chatbot on basis of their questions right now. And so then the chatbot kind of provides the answers and can write more complex code in the background. So for example, this is a simple search for give me all the activities in the regions related to hydrogen. And then it will show you the actors, the patents, the job offers, the projects on different levels, and the publications, the scientific publications as well. So this is at the moment the status of this tool, and we hope in the future to integrate more and more data sets, unstructured also. But of course, we wanted to start with the structured data. So when we have all this data, we have to structure the knowledge that it kind of shows us, right? So, and policymakers, especially in Europe, they have very creative ideas of what to fund. So something like industries like bioeconomy and circular economy, Industry 4.0, and these are all industries or, well, let's say technologies that are not yet there, right? So you cannot find them in centralized statistical reporting. So these fields are always, they are emerging, they are quicker than the statistical offices, and they are cross-disciplinary. So you have to find a way to find these kind of fields from the data itself and not from the activity itself and not from some statistical office that defines them. So we use this topic modeling on the text provided in each activity. Let's say it's on the homepage, it's in the publication, it's in the patent, in the project description, and we use this text to find similar texts and then cluster them into topics. And this, for example, is a map of all the publications done in Central Mining District, where each publication is one dot, and each dot has a different color relating to the topic. So this is the basis for finding the endogenous strength in the region and to find new development paths. I will shortly speak about the monitoring. So what this enables us to do is kind of combine information on the quality of life in the different areas. As you can probably imagine, so the darker shade, the better quality of life by economic and socioeconomic indicators is. And especially here where the brown coal mining is happening, there are the largest socioeconomic problems, demographic problems, which also kind of translates into different election outcomes that in the rest of the country already. And so we want to show a way to show the quality of life, the funding landscape, and the potentials for, well, new companies related into some of these new development paths on one map, where people then can click interactively around and find out where they should fund, actually, who and where they should fund these new potentials. And so, yeah, this is kind of the first look into how the Genesis tool looks at the moment. And of course, after about, well, let's say 2 years of interacting with the policy makers and working on this tool and looking at the structural change in Saxony. We have some reflections on it, and I will hand over back to Friedrich to provide, well, the concluding remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Yeah, that's. I think our time is over, so I'll just keep it really short. On the one hand, of course, I would sum it up like that. We, from a application point of view, going into discussion with decision makers in the region on evidence-based data does not always provide to be, let's say, we experience that it's not always that easy to get into discussion with decision makers in the regions, and to be able to convince them that it will be helpful to use evidence-based data as a basis for discussions. As you can imagine, this has been we observed some skepticism there. That's not surprising, I guess, but I think this is one of the most important lessons we've learned. The way how you present the data and the way how you prepare you kind of prepare, or you orchestrate and you organize the process on how you're going to present the paper in which kind of session and network is important, and that you find people supporting you in doing that. Luckily, we do have, but this definitely is a challenge and is needed, I think, to be impactful with what we are doing here right now. On the one hand, and from a more bird's eye perspective, the regional identity in the regions, which is not necessarily directly linked to energy, but more directly linked to coal, while you are telling people that they will drop out, that the regions will drop out of coal, doesn't make communication with the public easier. This is also kind of a challenge that the regions need time to accept that their identity in this regard is changing, and people, I think, need time regarding that. I think this is one thing, and of course, agency in the regions is needed and is definitely one of the core ingredients to organize transformation and change. But convincing people with strong agency, as I said, is sometimes challenging. I think for more method-wise limitations, Benjamin could tell at least 1 more hour about stuff like that. If you're interested in this regard, we can also go into discussion in this regard. But I think we'll leave it with that now. Yeah. And sorry for being almost 5 minutes too long. Almost.
Let's give a round of applause to Friedrich. Thank you both, gentlemen. And I just want to acknowledge the time difference. Your window looks like it could be early evening in Germany, but actually we know it's very early morning. So thank you for getting up so early and presenting so well at probably what I would certainly find a challenging time of the day. Okay, we have no questions in the chat, so I'm going to turn to the room and just ask if anybody has a question after what they've seen and heard. Yes, please, Nina.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm actually interested in what factors did the communities identify to express quality of life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quality of life in this regard is it's very different from different people. Actually, we just ended up with a study where we identified 5 types of people, and this is make kind of 5 general ways of thinking about structural change. And one, for example, I would point out is the very the skeptic. who kind of has the history also in mining, family-wise, and they are worrying about energy security. They're worrying about their jobs. Well, not that much anymore because most of them are rather older, but they are worrying about the jobs for the future, for the younger people, for their grandchildren, for their children, because they see that in the future there is nothing safe rising up. Nothing safe rising up, and they see there is coal right outside the window, and we could use it, but we don't do it. On the other hand, and they want, and most of the times these people, they want large projects, for example. They want large developments, for example. But there's also a large part of people who want the smaller projects, who want culture, who want to have a better community, who want to have a society that grows together. And so actually the policymakers, we see they are kind of attacked from both sides, and they kind of have to keep the balance there. In the end, I would say what is really one of the main factors here is that the people feel agency and feel that they can participate in the decisions, but which is of course very difficult to oversee, right? Because people have very high varying amount of ideas, I would say. So yeah, just leave it at that. We try to look from basic indicators in that, and we see that in East Germany, the provision of public services is already lower than in the West, let's say. And this is the main problem here, that people are worrying that it becomes worse in this process. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Newman, thank you so much. And I know the people in this room, being Gippsland and Trade Valley based, there's a whole lot in that narrative that you described in Saxony and elsewhere that completely resonates for us. Remarkable, even the points that you make about people losing agency, and indeed that tension between wanting the big project versus stronger social cohesion and creativity and the like. So thank you. That's a wonderful insight. I'm going to go to the chat. Susan Burns asked, can you discuss how you got the communities to see the strengths they have developed in coal mining that could be transferred to new industries? And how did they participate in creating the pathways to new industries?
Yeah. Well, let's say the structure change is a very large process, right? And we were not kind of involved into the participation process of people. So we did interviews, and we now doing some research, using new methods in qualitative social science. And but there were also, there was a process set up by the state itself, and where in each region, a sub-region of the coal regions, they did some workshop sets where they looked for ideas in the general population. And this is I would say not everyone is very happy with this result. There is a result that looks at new pathways, but it's very heterogeneous. What Saxony is doing mainly is that the communities itself, where the smallest municipalities, they can apply for funding. And this is kind of the way how the community is involved the most. So they have own ideas on how to strengthen their health system, their childcare systems, culture. There are a lot of projects in these 254 projects are, I would say, community related, culture related, and public service related. So I think there is a participation of, the general population in these communities, translated by the major, I would say. But when you deal with talking about larger industrial developments, you cannot really actually participate a lot of people in it. But when there is decisions on, let's say, a large-scale industrial investment in Germany, the population is always, in most cases, very able to argue against it, to kind of prevent it from happening. So, which has happened in this region quite some time, I would say. Yeah.
I might just want to add that exactly how Benjamin described, like the projects and the allocation and investment on a more civil public service level, cultural level, etc. is kind of bottom up, kind of.
Yeah, I would say.
However, the industrial strategy and innovation strategy decisions tend to be more top down. This is what we observe. I think that's basically I want to add. Yeah.
Terrific, thank you. And there's a follow-up question from Tanya Peterkin, which I think you've answered. Tanya, you're in the chat, so if you want to delve a little bit further on that question that you put in the chat, then please tap it in. Yes, Lisa, please.
Just interested in your comment that people need time to realise their identity is changing. How long has that taken, and do you feel like the Saxony region is on board with the change now?
Honestly, I think it's a process. Really, the regions are in the middle of this process, and I don't have a scientifically validated opinion on the time frame. But
it's a bit difficult to distinguish that from the general identity politics of East versus West Germany. I would say that's also one factor that comes. I would say in times of economic crisis, these differences break open a bit more. What we see from the Ruhr area in West Germany, it kind of never stops. I would say they still it's part of the region. It never goes away, and the kind of that it is a coal region. It's dealing with heavy industry. I mean, you still have the constructions there, and what some of these projects are doing is kind of this industrial culture thing. So you have these structures and you fill them with new life. That is kind of one way to deal with this identity. You don't destroy everything. Sometimes you keep the buildings and you provide new ways for the people to interpret these buildings. So maybe a large scale brown coal excavator becomes a new background for a music festival or something, or a park for children to learn about techniques, right? So the technical stuff. So this is one thing I would say. Yeah.
So people always tend to keep their identity as an energy region. But what I would say is for Saxony and also for the coal mining regions in North Rhine-Westphalia, this is kind of true too. They have to say goodbye to being a coal region. You know what I mean? And I think they will stay an energy region forever, but accepting that their history in coal mining, they're going to have to let that go, is a process which is definitely going on, from my opinion. And this is going to take time.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Will Rifkin's question online and then to Steve Dodd in the room. So Will Rifkin's asked, are there any golden insights into characterising the health of a region's innovation ecosystem with the sort of data that's actually available at a reasonable level? For example, at the area of a local government area or a precinct. And he's looking specifically from the perspective of the Hunter Valley coal mining region in Australia. So probably just to quantify, in Australia, we have 3 levels of government: federal, state, local. So that local level is, it varies in size and population, but it's probably a level lower than, say, for example, Saxony or Saxony-Anhalt in the way you describe the way that government works, and or indeed data sets. So, for example, sorry, I'm just trying to over-explain here slightly, but that map you showed of Saxony, I think, and the white patch, which was the coal mining areas, is that a local government area or is that like a number of?
Kind of 4 or 5 communities are directly in the vicinity of the coal open cast mine, I would say. But each of these municipalities has about 1,000 to 6,000 inhabitants there. So it differs. So a municipality in Germany can be very small, I would say. So one of the larger cities around there, Hoyerswerda, has about 20,000 people in it.
So the innovation ecosystem would be more than these municipalities. So you would have to look at it more from I mean, Germany is geographically quite small compared to Australia. So you would really have to take, I'd say, at least like kind of a functional area like a metropolitan region to consider it to be a regional innovation ecosystem. And here, I'd say we haven't done it yet, but
we know about it.
We know about it, and we do have the data to look at these functional regions, like, for example, the metropolitan region of Halle, Leipzig, Dresden, together with Lausanne region. And Halle, Leipzig is, of course, the central, the Middle Eastern German region and mining district. And then we could definitely use these indicators to describe the innovation ecosystem there, that's for sure.
I mean, I would say a healthy innovation ecosystem is an ecosystem where there is a kind of variety in the knowledge that people have or people in organizations have. So there's a kind of variety there, but there are also some clusters where you can see a particular strength in there where you can evolve from. So not everybody should be doing the same. So what's mostly happening in coal regions is that a lot of resources are put into, of course, this extraction industries, but you need to have some related industries around that from which you can evolve further there, right? And what we see here, especially in these coal regions in the very east, for a long time, for example, there was a lot of only little knowledge, generation knowledge, exploration. So this is the reason why they now invest into research centers or universities there, because that has not been done for a long time. So now they need they realize we need people from other parts of the region, country, that go there to study, that create businesses, that learn about new technologies. And so this is one, you have to have a part that generates knowledge, and you have a part that exploits and circulates knowledge. So you need also not only universities, but you need the industries that are related to these new technologies arising in these industries, in these universities, which can exploit this knowledge. And so, well, it's a kind of balancing out between this focus, the specialization, and the combination of knowledge in the end.
And you are mentioning one important point. I think, like, I just want to point to it a bit more explicitly. What we've been lacking in Eastern Germany since the Wende is headquarters. We didn't have headquarters of bigger corporates in these regions. And this was really an issue for developing innovation ecosystem, and made it really, it is still a critical task for Eastern Germany to kind of anchor the knowledge that is generated in the, while we do have a big research infrastructure in Dresden and Leipzig. There's lots of research organizations, but we are lacking anchor firms that are able to anchor this knowledge in the region, because usually this knowledge is exploited somewhere else. And I think this is one of the tasks and milestones to go to. As Benjamin said, we're trying to help ourselves by attracting and creating new research organizations in the hope that these will spin out startups that will and then grow as gazelles or bigger corporates.
Friedrich,
However-
that's a beautiful reflection that maybe wasn't answering the question, but actually once again would resonate very strongly, I think, for the people of Gippsland. So thank you. I'm going to go to the next question, which is Steve Dodd.
Yeah, Rob, I'll just start it off, but like in coal regions, especially like in the Latrobe Valley, we're going for a change, biggest change ever. I just want to know what type of blockers you guys have run into, whether it's government regulation or investment, or actually the people of the region not accepting that they have to move into new industries. And how do you develop those new industries in that region?
So I just want to make sure we got you right. So the question is invest in greenfield, right? Versus, and the second I didn't really get.
I just want to know what sort of government support is there to reinvest into new industries for the workers who come out of those coal regions, because let's face facts, that's how they made their money. Now they're worried about their kids and their grandkids and the futures. And the bottom line is there's going to be no future unless there's a viable manufacturing industry in the region. So it's really the transitioning. And the question is it regulation that's holding it up, or investment, or the people in the region not accepting that they have to change?
Yeah, just one first thought, and then I hand over to you. Is what we don't have is like regulation-wise. It changed lately. There's no government support going directly into corporates. This is not possible. Has not been possible. It changed 1 year ago, so corporates can kind of get direct funding, but it's difficult. It's still difficult, and this is what I would like to add there. So direct funding difficult. So the funding usually goes into creating the environment that is attracting people, attracting firms. And this is also why in Europe and in Germany, funding usually goes into science, because this is the way that we can indirectly, we're hoping to help industry in that way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more indirect way in the European Union, because you cannot directly fund corporates, but there are ways, of course, to still support that they set up. In Germany, for example, you don't have this. When you provide industrial areas, at the moment you will have investment, because there's a shortage on areas providing space for especially manufacturing jobs. When the policy wants to promote manufacturing industries, it's mostly based in this area development, and then in the science department, in the science development. So there are also transformation funds. Kind of depends who is in charge at the moment in the German government, but there are large funds related to energy transition for companies. Large-scale research projects and pilot projects for, let's say, green steel, for example, because especially since the war broke out in the Ukraine, so of course, energy prices have been under pressure, right? So companies that are very high resource intensive, at the moment they need support from the government rather directly, which has kind of happened in many ways. Yeah. Special regulations.
We're going to wrap it up there. Tanya and Gillian online with those questions. We'll see if we can't get a follow-up questions via just a direct message. But I'm going to hand over to Thomas Baumgartl to wind up. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for illuminating.
Thank you, Chris, for running the show. And above all, thanks a lot to Friedrich and Benjamin for getting up early and for presenting a very interesting idea and a concept which has still a few holes maybe, but it's very impressive to understand how there is an attempt to try to support structural change in a region to help the transitioning. And I would like also to thank a lot everyone who dialed in and all the participants here at the Mobile Innovation Center who came to attend and for all the questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's great to see so many people dialing in and being in the room there
Exactly.
for this presentation.
And thanks for the great questions.
Yeah.